Everyone has to live somewhere, and everyone has to invest their money someplace. So what happens when where you live meets up with where your money is invested? Hello, real estate. Hey, welcome back to Big Money Real Estate. This is my Wednesday interview program on the Expert Real Estate Tips channel. I'm Ilyce Glink. I'm here to help you make the best money moves possible. Be sure to subscribe for weekly insight and tips from real estate and personal finance experts that I interview here on the show. This week, my guest is Lance Coyle. He's current president of the Appraisal Institute, which is the leading industry association for real estate appraisers. We're going to cover the gamut from consumer tips to challenging your appraisal to how landscaping actually impacts your home value. Welcome to Big Money Real Estate, Lance.
Thank you.
So before we get into the tips that you have for consumers, let's talk about what's new or changing in the appraisal industry right now. What's going on with, say, drones?
Well, of course, that's a hot topic right now. Drones can be very useful for inspecting a property, looking at a large tract of land, for instance, or a large building. But there are many restrictions on the use of drones. And right now, it doesn't look like it's going to be very easy or convenient for appraisers to use that technology.
We just did a video shoot for a client, and one of the questions that came up was, did we want to actually use a drone? The cost of the drone for me to rent it for the day wasn't that expensive, but owning it is a serious investment. Is the investment part of it the problem with using drones for appraisals, or are there other legal restrictions such as FAA rules and restrictions?
My view is it's the legal restrictions. Investing in drone technology isn't cheap, but it's not prohibitive either. And I think a lot of appraisers are very interested in how they can utilize that technology. Clearly, there are some very beneficial reasons for having access to drone technology, but right now the legal restrictions are really what is holding everybody back.
It's interesting. All right, well, let's talk a little bit about challenging an appraisal. We know that when a bank, you apply for a loan, whether you're refinancing or doing a purchase of a home, the bank is going to order an appraisal, and sometimes that appraisal comes back. And with the new rules in place, sometimes you get an appraiser who has never been in your neighborhood before, has no history or knowledge of what's been going on in that neighborhood, frankly. And the appraisal comes back and it's completely wrong with what's going on. Is it possible for consumers to challenge these appraisals today? Is it any easier than it used to be? And what would be your best tips for that?
Well, yes, you can challenge an appraisal. There's really two kinds of ways you can challenge that appraisal. The first would involve just simply factual errors. If the appraiser doesn't get the number of bedrooms right or the number of bathrooms right, or something that's clearly factually wrong, then you should contact the lender and ask for that to be corrected. In most instances, that's a very straightforward process. The lender will look at it, they'll go back to the appraiser, and they will ask the appraiser to correct any of those kinds of factual errors. Now, if you just don't like the opinion of value, then that's a little bit different. Challenging an appraisal because you don't like the opinion of value is a little tougher. You can always request a second appraisal to be performed, but you're more than likely going to have to pay the cost of that second appraisal.
But the way that the appraisal industry has really changed really since the housing crisis began in 2007 and 2008 has really done a disservice both to the appraisers who are in it and I think in a lot of ways to the homeowners. Forget about how the realtors are screaming about it, but you've got this whole idea that was supposed to protect consumers. What it's done is layer on more cost and because there are fewer and fewer appraisers who are willing to work for, say, about half as much as they were before, you have less experienced, less knowledgeable appraisers who are coming in from 50, 70 miles away to do an appraisal and have no knowledge in the industry. How is your organization handling that, and how are you training these people?
Well, we are on top of that, and one of the initiatives that we have right now is to try to get Congress to take a look at the regulatory environment. What you've said is absolutely correct. Some of the reforms that were made in the Dodd-Frank law of 2010 are now proving to be less than good policy, less than functional for not only consumers and homeowners and even commercial property owners, but the appraisal profession as a whole. The Appraisal Institute has about 21,000 members, and that makes us by far the largest professional society of real estate appraisers around, by far. But we only represent about 30% of the wider real estate appraiser population in the United States. We have just under 80,000 appraisers in the United States. So we reach about 21,000 of those folks. Most of the folks that are not affiliated with us are in the residential mortgage lending market. And we encourage them to come and take our courses and our seminars, and many do, but some of them are out of reach for us in terms of how we train them. As far as the other things are concerned, we do have active conversations with our legislators, and we are working on some solutions to try to streamline and modernize federal regulations that we think have not been good for all parties around. And some of that has been having to do with appraisal management companies. Some of it has to do with the requirements on appraisers. We're making progress, we think, but it is a little bit slow.
How is it being received over in Washington, D.C.?
Well, we think there's interest. We do talk to our congressmen about this, and we do get a lot of interest in it. They are listening, and a number of folks that we've talked to are concerned about the environment, not only in Congress, but other trade groups as well. You mentioned earlier that the number of appraisers has been declining in the United States.
Right.
And in fact, we're down about 20,000 appraisers in the last 8 years or so. We've had about a 20% decline. Much of that is due to the regulatory environment, in our view. There are a number of reasons why that is, but the regulatory environment certainly has not helped with that. And as a result of that, the bankers associations and others are concerned about the availability of appraisers going forward. And we're concerned about it as well.
Are you working with the Appraisal Foundation on this?
Well, the Appraisal Foundation is authorized by Congress to set qualifications and standards for real estate appraisers in the United States. We left as a sponsor of that organization back in 2010. So we don't really work with them very much. Being the largest professional association of appraisers in the United States, we have enough of a footprint that we can speak directly to Congress. And of course, we'll bring in anybody that wants to join us from other parts of the profession.
All right, let's turn a little bit to some tips for consumers. One of the things that I think has a tremendous impact on a home value, particularly now that we're in the age of digital viewing, where people will make offers regularly on property that they haven't even seen it. This blows my mind every time I hear somebody doing this. However, the value of landscaping on home values has skyrocketed. Your house has to look amazing in a photograph of the exterior. Nobody's ever even going to make an appointment to see it. We've been doing these sort of what I call drive-by showings, where people will drive lot line to lot line And if they like it in the 30 seconds or 20 seconds or 5 seconds, depending on how wide that is, to get across the property, they like how it looks, then they might actually call the realtor. So landscaping has become something that's, you know, even more important than physically protecting the exterior of the house, but it's this thing that is really make it or break it on an instantaneous impact. So that's my view of it. What are you seeing from an appraisal point of view on the impact of landscaping on home values, and what should consumers be thinking about as they are thinking about changing the hardscape of their landscape?
Well, you're correct about all of those things. When a consumer drives by a house, the first thing that they notice is the exterior appearance of that house. And of course, landscaping has a lot to do with it. And consumers will form an instantaneous impression about that home before they ever go inside. So you're absolutely correct. The initial impression that consumers get from the exterior of the house is all important in terms of marketing the house and getting people to come inside. Now, what consumers need to know about marketing that house is that that landscaping has got to be tidy. It can't seem overgrown. The lawn needs to be mowed. The bushes need to be trimmed. The landscaping needs to appear like it's well kept. You just can't have a lot of overgrown stuff, and you can't have a lot of drab looking landscaping. The old adage that realtors have been pushing for years, that if you just put some pretty colorful flowers out front, you'd be surprised at how much it makes a difference in terms of generating interest in the house. So getting it tidied up, making it look good are really important. Now, it can affect the value of the home. If you have poor landscaping that needs to be ripped out and you need to start over, then certainly a consumer is not going to want to pay as much for that home because they know they'll have the expense of redoing the landscaping. So good landscaping, bad landscaping, certainly it can affect the value of the home.
Yeah, I absolutely believe that. And of course, people just don't even want the headache of doing anything to their homes anymore. They just want to move in and have it be perfect and look like it's an HGTV set, strangely enough. Lance, thank you so much for being with us today. I really appreciate your comments.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
Lance Coyle is the current president of the Appraisal Institute. Thanks for watching this episode of Big Money Real Estate. As always, you should send me your questions on Twitter. I'm @Glink, and on Facebook, my fan page is Ilyce Glink, so I can answer them on future shows. And please share this video all around. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and check out some of my cool products at the ThinkLink store. See you next time. I'm Ilyce Glink.